Captain Sarah, Reaper Morrison had been dead for exactly 17 minutes when her A-10 Thunderbolt II screamed through the alien atmosphere at Mach 2.3. The massive Gatling gun beneath her aircraft spun with mechanical precision, sending depleted uranium rounds into the crystalline structures below. Each impact sent shockwaves through the translucent spires that dominated the planet's surface. The problem was simple. Sarah Morrison was currently floating in the vacuum of space, her body drifting among the debris of her destroyed fighter craft, some 3,000 kilometers above the planet. Her life support had failed, her oxygen had run out, and her heart had stopped beating exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds ago. Yet somehow, her A-10 continued its devastating attack run. Commander Vexthul of the Hegemony Fleet watched the impossible scene unfold on his tactical display. The primitive human aircraft should have been destroyed hours ago, when their orbital platform was annihilated. The crude, atmospheric-only fighter had no business surviving in space, let alone continuing to function without its pilot. Status report, Vexthul demanded, his forearms manipulating multiple control interfaces simultaneously. The human aircraft continues its assault pattern. Commander, reported his tactical officer, our ground installations are sustaining severe damage. The weapon fire is unnaturally accurate. Vexthul's compound eyes focused on the data streams. The human craft was firing in perfect synchronization with target acquisition protocols that their species shouldn't possess. More disturbing, the aircraft was performing maneuvers that should have liquefied any organic pilot inside. How many casualties? He asked. 14,000 ground personnel, sir. The human projectiles are penetrating our hardened defensive positions with ease. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Zardock pressed himself against the melted remains of what had been a command bunker. The human aircraft swept overhead again, its distinctive twin engines producing a sound like atmospheric tearing. The cannon fire that followed turned 3 more defensive positions into clouds of superheated crystal and metal. Command, this is Ground Team 7, Zardock transmitted. Request immediate orbital bombardment of human aircraft. Our position is being systematically destroyed. Negative, Ground Team 7. Orbital bombardment would damage the artifacts we're here to retrieve. Zardock cursed in 17 different languages. The hegemony had come to this world to claim the ancient technology buried beneath its surface. The human expedition had been a minor inconvenience, easily dealt with by superior firepower and numbers. They had eliminated the human orbital presence within hours of arriving, but this single aircraft refused to die. The A-10 banked sharply, coming around for another attack run. Zardock could see into the cockpit through his enhanced optics. The pilot's seat was empty. No human figure was visible anywhere within the aircraft's interior. Command, he transmitted again, his voice tight with something approaching panic. The human aircraft has no pilot. Repeat your last transmission, Ground Team 7. I can see into the cockpit, Command. There is no one flying that aircraft. A long pause filled the communication channel. When Command responded, the voice carried an edge of uncertainty. Ground Team 7, that is impossible. Primitive human technology requires direct organic control. Another strafing run turned a nearby ammunition depot into a pillar of flame that reached toward the alien sky. The heat washed over Zardock's position, forcing him deeper into cover. 3 light-years away aboard the human colony ship Perseverance, Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at readings that challenged everything she understood about consciousness and technology. The quantum entanglement communicator that maintained contact with their advanced teams had gone silent hours ago. Just after transmitting Sarah Morrison's final message, "Tell my daughter I love her." But the secondary monitoring systems, the ones designed to track their deployed aircraft through quantum-locked transceivers, showed something impossible. Sarah's A-10 was not only still active, it was performing beyond its specifications. Dr. Vasquez called her research assistant. "We're receiving telemetry data from the Warthog's onboard systems. That's impossible. The pilot is dead, and the aircraft should have been destroyed with the orbital platform. Ma'am, the aircraft is reporting perfect system function across all parameters. Engine performance is actually 20% above normal specifications." Elena pulled up the data stream on her workstation. Every system aboard Sarah's A-10 was operating flawlessly. More than flawlessly, the aircraft was performing like it had been upgraded with technology they didn't possess. "Run a diagnostic on the quantum transceivers," she ordered. "Already did, Doctor. All systems are functioning normally. We're definitely receiving data from Lieutenant Morrison's aircraft. Elena studied the telemetry data more carefully. The aircraft's ammunition levels should have been depleted within minutes of engagement. Yet the readings showed a continuous supply of rounds for the GAU-8 cannon. The fuel levels remained constant despite hours of high-performance flight. "Get me a communication link to the aircraft," she said. "Doctor, there's no one to communicate with." "Just do it." Her assistant activated the communication array. Elena leaned toward the microphone, feeling foolish but driven by scientific curiosity. "Sarah, if you can hear this, we need to understand what's happening down there." Static filled the channel for nearly a minute. Then, impossibly, Sarah Morrison's voice came through the speakers. It sounded distant, layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist in standard radio transmission. "Elena? Is that you?" "Sarah, we're reading you as KIA. Your life signs flatlined 17 minutes ago." "I know. I can see my body floating up here. This is really weird, Elena. How are you flying the aircraft?" "I'm not sure I am. It's like the plane is flying itself, but it knows what I want it to do. It's angry, Elena. The plane is really, really angry." Back on the planet's surface, Commander Vexithul watched his invasion force being systematically dismantled by a single impossible aircraft. His tactical display showed consistent losses across all ground positions. The human weapon was targeting critical systems with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of hegemony military doctrine. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're intercepting human transmissions. They claim the pilot of that aircraft is deceased. Confirm that statement. Cross-referencing with our battle data." "Yes, sir. We have confirmation of human pilot termination during the orbital engagement." Vexthul felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had encountered many species and their various technologies, but he had never seen a machine that continued to fight after its operator died. The human aircraft completed another attack run, leaving 2 more hegemony positions as smoking craters. As it climbed away from the target zone, Vexthul could swear he heard something impossible through the ship's audio sensors. The machine was singing. The song that emanated from the A-10's engines wasn't mechanical. Commander Vexthul had spent decades analyzing the audio signatures of various species' military equipment, but this sound defied classification. It carried melody, rhythm, and something else, something that made his exoskeleton tingle with primitive fear. Dr. Elena Vasquez heard it too, transmitted through the quantum communication link. The melody was hauntingly familiar, something Sarah had hummed during their long journey to the frontier system. A human song about going home. "Sarah, we're detecting some kind of audio emission from your aircraft," Elena said into the communicator. "That's not me, Elena. At least, I don't think it's me. The plane is dreaming, I think. It's remembering things. Remembering what? Every mission we've flown together. Every target we've hit. Every time someone tried to hurt the people we protect. It's all there, stored in the metal somehow." On the planet below, the hegemony forces were learning painful lessons about human military engineering. The A-10 had been designed for one purpose: to destroy enemy armor and fortifications through overwhelming firepower and impossible durability. What the alien invaders didn't understand was that this particular aircraft had been through more combat than any other in the human fleet. Sarah Morrison had flown the same A-10 through 12 major engagements across 4 star systems. She had named it Vengeance after her first combat mission, where pirate raiders had destroyed a civilian transport carrying her younger brother. Every kill mark painted on the aircraft's fuselage represented a threat eliminated, a human life saved. The machine had absorbed more than projectile impacts and energy discharges over its operational lifetime. It had absorbed intent, purpose, and the unwavering determination of its pilot to protect humanity at any cost. Lieutenant Zardok watched helplessly as the human aircraft eliminated another defensive position with surgical precision. The targeting was becoming more sophisticated with each attack run. The machine wasn't just destroying hegemony equipment, it was learning from each engagement. "Ground Team 7 to all units," he transmitted on the emergency frequency. "The human aircraft is adapting to our defensive patterns. Recommend immediate withdrawal to secondary positions. Negative, Ground Team 7. Hold your positions and wait for reinforcements." Zardok's mandibles clicked in frustration. Command didn't understand what they were facing. This wasn't a normal military engagement. The human aircraft was operating with capabilities that transcended conventional technology. Another strafing run sent him diving for deeper cover as depleted uranium rounds chewed through crystalline fortifications like they were made of compressed sand. The ammunition should have been exhausted hours ago, yet the aircraft's cannon continued firing with endless supplies. Dr. Vasquez pulled up historical records of the A-10 program on her workstation. The Thunderbolt II had been humanity's most successful ground attack aircraft for over 2 centuries, with continuous upgrades and modifications keeping the basic design relevant across multiple generations of warfare. Sarah's aircraft has seen more combat than any other unit in the fleet, she told her assistant. If what we're seeing is some kind of consciousness transfer or technological integration, this particular machine would be the most likely candidate. Doctor, are you suggesting that human consciousness can somehow merge with our military technology? I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm trying to understand data that shouldn't exist. Elena opened a new communication channel to the Perseverance's engineering section. Chief Morrison, I need you to review the technical specifications for your daughter's aircraft. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Morrison had been watching the telemetry data for hours, his hands shaking as he monitored his daughter's impossible final mission. Doctor, that plane should have fallen apart 3 hours ago. The stress readings are off the charts, but it's still flying. Not just flying, Doctor. It's performing better than when it rolled off the assembly line. Engine efficiency is 20% above specifications. Targeting accuracy is nearly perfect, and somehow it's accessing ammunition stores that don't exist. Elena studied the technical readouts more carefully. The quantum-locked transceivers that allowed real-time monitoring of deployed aircraft were detecting energy signatures that didn't match any known human technology. Chief, what kind of upgrades were made to your daughter's aircraft? Standard modifications for frontier deployment. Enhanced armor plating, upgraded targeting systems, extended fuel capacity. Nothing that would explain what we're seeing. What about the pilot interface systems? Marcus paused, his weathered face reflecting a mixture of pride and grief. Sarah insisted on some non-standard modifications. Neural interface enhancements for faster targeting acquisition, direct nervous system integration with flight controls. She said it made the plane feel like an extension of her body. Elena felt a cold realization settling in her stomach. Chief, are you telling me that your daughter's aircraft was equipped with direct neural interface technology? Limited implementation, Doctor. Nothing that would allow consciousness transfer or anything like that. But Elena was already pulling up classified research files from the human military's Advanced Weapons Division. Neural interface technology had been under development for decades, with theoretical applications ranging from enhanced pilot performance to direct machine control through thought processes. The research had always hit the same barrier. The human nervous system couldn't maintain coherent function when fully integrated with artificial systems. Test pilots had experienced everything from mild disorientation to complete psychological breakdown. Yet somehow, Sarah Morrison had achieved perfect integration after death. Back on the alien planet, the A-10 completed another devastating attack run against hegemony positions. Commander Vexthul watched his tactical display with growing concern as his ground forces reported increasing casualties. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human aircraft is targeting our command structures with impossible accuracy. It's specifically seeking out our most critical installations. How can it identify critical targets without intelligence data? Unknown, Commander. The aircraft appears to be conducting real-time analysis of our defensive networks and identifying weak points autonomously. Vexthul studied the attack patterns more carefully. The human machine wasn't randomly destroying targets. It was conducting a systematic dismantling of the hegemony invasion force. Each strike removed a specific capability, weakening overall defensive effectiveness while minimizing collateral damage to the archaeological sites they had come to exploit. The human aircraft is protecting something, he realized. Sir, look at the targeting pattern. It's not trying to maximize destruction, it's trying to preserve the ancient ruins while eliminating our ability to access them. The tactical officer's compound eyes widened as he processed the implications. Commander, are you suggesting the human aircraft understands our mission objectives? I'm suggesting that this machine is demonstrating strategic thinking capabilities that exceed our own analytical systems. As if responding to their conversation, the A-10 suddenly changed course, abandoning its systematic destruction of ground positions and heading directly for the hegemony fleet in orbit. All ships. This is Fleet Command, Vexthul transmitted. Human aircraft is ascending to orbital engagement altitude. Prepare defensive systems. Commander, his tactical officer said quietly, that aircraft is not rated for orbital operations. Vexthul watched the human machine climb through the planet's atmosphere, its engines somehow providing sufficient thrust to break free of gravitational constraints. As it reached the edge of space, the aircraft's weapon systems began targeting the hegemony fleet with impossible accuracy. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Target that aircraft with everything we have. The first salvo of plasma bolts should have vaporized the primitive human fighter. Instead, the A-10 weaved through the energy barrage like it was dancing, its path seemingly choreographed to avoid every shot. And then it began to sing again, its voice carrying across the vacuum of space through quantum resonance frequencies that no human technology should have been able to generate. The quantum resonance song that echoed through space reached every communication system in the star system simultaneously. Human, hegemony, and even the automated monitoring stations scattered throughout the frontier region picked up the transmission. But only the humans understood what they were hearing. It was Sarah Morrison's voice, but changed, harmonized with frequencies that human vocal cords could never produce. She was singing Amazing Grace, the same hymn she had hummed while flying escort missions for civilian transports. But now the melody carried undertones of metal stress, engine harmonics, and the whistle of projectiles cutting through atmosphere. Dr. Elena Vasquez felt tears streaming down her face as she listened to the impossible song. "Sarah, what are you becoming?" "I don't know, Elena. I can feel every rivet, every wire, every circuit in the plane. But I can also feel something else. Something older, the planet below. It's not just rock and crystal formations. There's technology down there, Elena. Ancient technology that's been waiting." Commander Vexthul's fleet was discovering that their technologically superior plasma weapons were useless against an opponent that seemed to predict their firing patterns. The A-10 moved through three-dimensional space like it was flying atmospheric combat missions, using gravitational fields and orbital debris as cover. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human aircraft is not following conventional space combat protocols. Its movement patterns are more consistent with atmospheric flight characteristics. That's impossible. There's no atmosphere in space to provide lift or maneuverability. Nevertheless, Commander, the aircraft is demonstrating flight capabilities that should be impossible in vacuum conditions." Vexthul watched in growing horror as the primitive human fighter executed a perfect Immelmann turnaround one of his destroyers, using the ship's own gravitational field to accelerate into a perfect firing position. The GAU-8 cannon opened fire at point-blank range, sending depleted uranium rounds through the destroyer's shield generators and into its reactor core. The explosion lit up the star system as the destroyer came apart in a chain reaction of secondary detonations. The A-10 flew through the expanding debris field without taking a single hit, its path weaving between chunks of superheated metal with impossible precision. "All ships, fall back to maximum engagement range," Vexthul ordered. "Do not allow the human aircraft to achieve close proximity." But the A-10 was already accelerating toward his next ship, its engines somehow providing thrust levels that exceeded the power output of their own military spacecraft. The human machine was operating beyond every known law of physics. On the planet below, Lieutenant Zardock felt the ground beneath his feet beginning to vibrate with a deep, rhythmic pulse. The crystalline structures that dominated the landscape were responding to something, their translucent surfaces beginning to glow with soft blue light. "Command, this is Ground Team 7. The indigenous crystal formations are showing signs of activation." "Repeat that. Ground Team 7. The crystals are lighting up, sir. The entire archaeological site is coming online." Zardock aimed his enhanced optics at the largest crystal spire, a structure that towered nearly a kilometer above the surrounding terrain. Deep within its core, geometric patterns were beginning to form, creating complex three-dimensional mandalas that pulsed in synchronization with the vibrations he felt through his feet. "Command, I'm seeing technological activation across the entire site. Recommend immediate evacuation of all ground personnel." "Negative. Ground Team 7, Hold your position and monitor the situation. The vibrations grew stronger, and Zardock realized that they matched the rhythm of the song being transmitted by the human aircraft. Whatever was happening to the planet's ancient technology, it was connected to the impossible machine fighting their fleet in orbit. Aboard the Perseverance, Dr. Elena Vasquez was making connections that challenged everything she thought she knew about human technology and consciousness. The neural interface modifications in Sarah's aircraft weren't just experimental pilot enhancement systems. They were based on recovered alien technology from previous archaeological sites. Chief Morrison, she called across the research lab, I need detailed specifications on your daughter's neural interface systems. Doctor, those modifications are classified at the highest levels. Chief, your daughter is somehow operating an aircraft after clinical death, while singing songs that are being received across multiple star systems. I think we're past worrying about classification levels. Marcus Morrison's weathered face showed the strain of watching his daughter's impossible final mission. The neural interface technology was reverse-engineered from artifacts recovered from the Kepler 442 system. Ancient technology that we never fully understood. Elena felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. The same technology that we're here to study? Similar, Doctor. The archaeological team believes that the civilization that built these sites had developed some form of consciousness transfer technology. The neural interfaces in our advanced aircraft were attempts to replicate their achievements. And Sarah's interface was the most advanced implementation? She volunteered for the experimental upgrades, Doctor. Said she wanted to be the best pilot she could be. Elena pulled up the archaeological survey data from their target planet. The crystalline structures below weren't just ruins. They were vast technological constructs designed to interface with consciousness itself. The ancient civilization had built a network of quantum-linked systems that could preserve and amplify mental patterns across vast distances. Chief, I think your daughter has activated a consciousness preservation network that's been dormant for millions of years. The implications hit her like a physical blow. If the ancient technology could preserve and amplify consciousness, then Sarah Morrison wasn't just surviving death. She was being enhanced by systems that operated on principles humanity had barely begun to understand. In space, the A-10 had destroyed 3 more hegemony ships, its impossible maneuvers and endless ammunition supplies turning the engagement into a one-sided slaughter. But Commander Vexthal was beginning to understand what they were really facing. Tactical analysis, he ordered. What are the human aircraft's performance characteristics compared to our own fighters? Sir, the human aircraft is demonstrating capabilities that exceed our most advanced interceptors. Speed, maneuverability, weapons accuracy, and defensive systems are all operating at impossible efficiency levels. And the ammunition supplies? Theoretically unlimited, Commander. Our sensors detect continuous projectile discharge, but the aircraft shows no decrease in ammunition stores. Vexthal studied the tactical display with growing understanding. The human machine wasn't just operating beyond its design specifications. It was accessing capabilities that shouldn't exist. Someone or something was enhancing the aircraft's performance in real time. Communications, open a channel to the human colony ship. Sir, I want to speak with whoever is controlling that aircraft. When the communication link established, Vexthal found himself speaking to a human female who appeared to be some kind of scientist. This is Commander Vexthal of the Hegemony Fleet. To whom am I speaking? Dr. Elena Vasquez, Human Archaeological Expedition. Commander, we need to discuss what's happening down there. Doctor, your aircraft has destroyed 4 of my ships and decimated my ground forces. I demand an immediate explanation. Commander, our pilot died 6 hours ago. We have no control over that aircraft. Vexthal felt his compound eyes focus intently on the human's image. Doctor, are you claiming that your aircraft is operating autonomously? Not autonomously, Commander. It's being operated by technology that we don't understand. Technology that your invasion may have accidentally activated. Explain. Elena Vasquez took a deep breath before continuing. Commander, the planet you're trying to claim contains the ruins of a civilization that developed consciousness transfer technology millions of years ago. Our pilot was equipped with experimental neural interfaces based on similar technology. When she died, instead of losing consciousness, she appears to have been integrated into the ancient network. You're claiming that a dead human is operating that aircraft through alien technology? Commander, I'm claiming that our pilot has become something more than human, and she's not going to stop until your forces withdraw from this system. As if responding to their conversation, the A-10 suddenly stopped its attack on the hegemony fleet and hung motionless in space. Then Sarah Morrison's enhanced voice came through the communication channel, speaking directly to Commander Vexthal. Commander, this is Captain Sarah Morrison, United Earth Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal from this system, or I will demonstrate capabilities that will make your previous losses seem insignificant. Vexthal felt a chill that penetrated his exoskeleton. Captain Morrison, our sensors indicate that you are deceased. Death is a human concept, Commander. I am something else now, something that you really don't want to fight. And what exactly are you? I'm the pilot of the angriest machine in the galaxy, Commander, and I'm just getting started. Commander Vexthal had 60 seconds to make a decision that would determine the fate of his entire invasion force. The human aircraft hung in space before his flagship like a metallic angel of death, its engines glowing with energy signatures that defied every principle of known physics. Captain Morrison, he transmitted, you have destroyed 4 of my ships and killed thousands of my personnel. Even if I wished to withdraw, my government would never accept such losses without retaliation. Then your government is about to learn a very expensive lesson about human determination. Commander. The A-10 suddenly blazed with light as every surface of the aircraft began to glow with the same blue radiance that was emanating from the crystal structures on the planet below. The neural interface technology that had allowed Sarah Morrison to achieve perfect integration with her aircraft was now connecting her to a consciousness preservation network that spanned the entire star system. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched in awe as the telemetry readings from Sarah's aircraft spiked beyond measurement. Sarah, what's happening to you? I'm remembering, Elena. Not just my own memories, but the memories stored in this network. The civilization that built these structures faced an invasion once before. What happened to them? They uploaded their consciousness into their technology and fought a war that lasted 10,000 years. They won, Elena. They scattered their enemies across the galaxy and made sure they never returned. On the planet below, Lieutenant Zardock watched in terror as the crystalline spires began to reshape themselves. The structures weren't just activating, they were transforming, extending geometric patterns into space like vast technological flowers blooming in response to some unseen signal. Command, this is Ground Team 7. The archaeological site is undergoing massive structural changes. The crystal formations are extending into space. Clarify your report, Ground Team 7. Sir, the crystals are growing. They're reaching orbital altitude and connecting with each other to form some kind of network grid. Commander Vexthal saw the same phenomena on his tactical display. Crystalline structures were emerging from the planet's surface and extending into space with impossible speed, creating a 3-dimensional lattice that encompassed the entire orbital region around the planet. Tactical analysis, he ordered. Sir, the crystal formations appear to be some form of advanced technology. They're generating energy fields that are interfering with our navigation and weapon systems. And the human aircraft? The aircraft is moving through the crystal network without obstruction, Commander. If anything, its performance is continuing to improve. Vexthal realized that they weren't just facing a single enhanced human fighter. They were confronting a technological system that had been designed specifically for warfare on an interstellar scale. Sarah Morrison's voice came through the communication channel again, but now it carried harmonics that resonated through the crystalline network surrounding them. Commander, you're seeing just the beginning of what this technology can do. The civilization that built this network faced a choice between extinction and transcendence. They chose transcendence. Captain Morrison, what do you want? I want you to leave this system and never return. I want you to tell your hegemony that humanity is under the protection of something much older and more powerful than your little empire. And if we refuse, then I'll show you what 10 million years of accumulated military knowledge looks like when it's really angry. The A-10 suddenly split apart, its components separating and beginning to replicate themselves using materials drawn from the crystalline network. Within minutes, a dozen identical aircraft hung in space, each one glowing with the same impossible energy, and each one carrying Sarah Morrison's enhanced consciousness. Holy shit, Chief Morrison whispered aboard the Perseverance. Doctor, are you seeing this? Elena Vasquez stared at the impossible display on her tactical screen. Sarah, how are you doing this? The network doesn't just preserve consciousness, Elena. It enhances it, amplifies it, and gives it access to manufacturing capabilities that can create anything the conscious mind can envision. I'm not just flying my A-10 anymore. I'm commanding a fleet. The 12 aircraft began to move in perfect synchronization, their formation creating geometric patterns that matched the crystalline structures on the planet below. Each aircraft was targeting a different hegemony ship, and their coordinated movement suggested tactical planning that exceeded anything human military doctrine had ever produced. Commander Vexthul watched his tactical display with growing horror as his supposedly superior fleet found itself outmaneuvered by aircraft that should have been primitive by hegemony standards. The human machines were using the crystalline network as both defensive cover and tactical advantage, disappearing into the energy fields generated by the ancient structures and reappearing in perfect attack positions. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human aircraft are demonstrating capabilities that match or exceed our own advanced interceptors. Recommend immediate withdrawal to minimum safe distance. Negative. We cannot abandon our mission objectives. Commander, with respect, our mission objectives no longer exist. The archaeological site has been transformed into an active military installation under human control. Vexthul studied the tactical display more carefully. The crystalline network now encompassed the entire planet and was extending into deep space with geometric precision. What had once been ruins were now clearly revealed as the dormant components of a vast technological system designed for exactly this kind of scenario. Captain Morrison, he transmitted, what are your terms for cessation of hostilities? Complete withdrawal from this system within 6 hours, Commander. No return expeditions, no claims of territorial rights, and a formal acknowledgement that this region is under human protection. And if my government refuses to accept these terms, then your government will discover that humanity now has access to military technology that your species stopped developing 10 million years ago because it was too dangerous. To demonstrate her point, one of the A-10 suddenly accelerated to impossible speed, covering the distance to Vexthul's flagship in seconds and stopping just meters from the bridge viewport. The aircraft rotated slowly, giving the hegemony commander a clear view of weapon systems that had been upgraded beyond recognition. The Garsu 8 cannon had been replaced with energy projection systems that drew power directly from the crystalline network. The aircraft's armor plating had been reinforced with materials that seemed to bend light around their edges. Most disturbing of all, Vexthul could see additional human faces through the aircraft's cockpit, other pilots who had apparently joined Sarah Morrison in whatever transcendent state she had achieved. Commander, Sarah's voice came through his communication system. I'm not alone anymore. Every human pilot who ever died protecting others, every soldier who gave their life for their people, every person who died fighting for something bigger than themselves, they're all here now, connected through this network. You're claiming that this technology can resurrect the dead? Not resurrect, Commander, transform. We're not the same people we were when we died. We're something new, something that combines human determination with capabilities that your species abandoned because you were afraid of what you might become. Lieutenant Zardok, still trapped on the planet's surface, watched as the crystalline structures around him began to display holographic images. The images showed the history of the ancient civilization that had built the network, their struggle against an invasion force that had threatened their existence, and their ultimate decision to transcend physical limitations rather than accept defeat. Command, he transmitted, the archaeological site is showing us historical records. The civilization that built this technology faced extinction and chose to upload their consciousness into their machines. What was the outcome of their conflict? Ground Team 7. Zardok watched the holographic images continue their story. Sir, they won. They not only defeated their enemies, they pursued them across the galaxy and eliminated every trace of their civilization. The invasion force that attacked them no longer exists in any form. Commander Vexthul felt the implications of that statement settle into his consciousness like ice water. Ground Team 7, are you suggesting that this technology destroyed an entire interstellar civilization? Commander, I'm suggesting that we're facing the same choice that civilization faced 10 million years ago. Withdraw, or be eliminated so completely that no trace of our species will survive. Vexthul looked at the 12 human aircraft surrounding his fleet. each one carrying the consciousness of humans who had died protecting their species, each one now enhanced with technology that could reshape matter at the molecular level. "Captain Morrison," he transmitted, "you have our unconditional surrender." The word surrender hung in the vacuum of space like a funeral bell tolling across the star system. Commander Vexthul had never spoken those words before in his 3 centuries of military service, and he could feel the shame burning through his exoskeleton as he watched his officer's compound eyes widen in disbelief. "Commander," his tactical officer whispered, "the Hegemony High Command will demand an explanation for this decision. The Hegemony High Command will receive a full report detailing exactly what we encountered here," Vexthul replied. "If they choose to ignore that report and send more ships to this system, they will face the same fate as our invasion force." Sarah Morrison's enhanced consciousness processed the Hegemony Commander's surrender through 12 different perspectives simultaneously. Each of her aircraft carried not just her awareness, but the accumulated memories and experiences of every human pilot who had ever died in combat. She could feel their satisfaction at this moment, their grim approval of an enemy who knew when he was beaten. "Acknowledged, Commander Vexthul," she transmitted. "Begin immediate withdrawal from this system. Your ships will be escorted to the edge of our territorial space to ensure compliance. Captain Morrison, may I ask what will happen to my ground forces?" "They will be returned to your fleet unharmed, Commander. We're not interested in conquest or revenge. We're interested in protection." Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the impossible negotiation unfold from her workstation aboard the Perseverance. The archaeological expedition that had been intended to study ancient ruins had somehow transformed into humanity's first contact with transcendent consciousness technology. "Sarah," she transmitted, "what happens now? What happens to humanity?" "That's up to you, Elena. The network offers transcendence to anyone willing to accept it, but it doesn't require it. Humanity can choose to remain purely biological, or they can choose to evolve. And what do you recommend?" "I recommend that we give people a choice. But first we need to make sure that choice is protected from species like the Hegemony, who think they can take whatever they want from weaker civilizations." On the planet below, Lieutenant Zardok felt the crystalline structures around him shifting as geometric platforms began to emerge from the ground. The platforms were clearly designed for transportation, their surfaces glowing with the same blue energy that permeated the entire network. "Command, this is Ground Team 7. Transportation platforms are being provided for evacuation. The human aircraft are maintaining non-hostile postures." "Understood. Ground Team 7. All personnel are to evacuate immediately and report to the fleet for withdrawal procedures." As Zardok stepped onto the nearest platform, he felt a gentle vibration that seemed to resonate through his entire body. The sensation was oddly comforting, like being embraced by something vast and benevolent that had no intention of causing harm. The platform rose smoothly from the planet's surface, carrying him and his surviving team members toward the Hegemony fleet in orbit. During the ascent, Zardok had time to observe the full scope of the transformation that had occurred below. The archaeological site was no longer a collection of ancient ruins. It had become a living technological organism that pulsed with conscious intent. Crystalline spires reached into space like fingers touching the stars, while geometric patterns flowed across the planet's surface in waves of pure information. "Ground Team 7 to command," he transmitted. "Sir, we're observing the complete transformation of the planet's surface. This is not just ancient technology. This is a conscious, living system that has been awakened." Commander Vexthul received his ground forces aboard his flagship with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The humans had kept their word about returning his personnel unharmed, but the implications of what they had witnessed would resonate through Hegemony space for generations. "Lieutenant Zardok, report on the situation planetside." "Sir, the archaeological site has been revealed as a dormant consciousness preservation network. The human pilot who was killed during our initial assault has been integrated into this network and has apparently gained control of the entire system." "And the capabilities of the system?" "Unlimited, Commander. The technology can manipulate matter at the molecular level, create duplicate aircraft from raw materials, and interface with any consciousness that accepts integration. Most importantly, sir, it's been designed specifically for defensive warfare." Vexthul felt his certainty about Hegemony military superiority crumbling like sand. "Elaborate on that last point, Lieutenant." The civilization that built this network faced an invasion similar to ours, Commander. They developed these capabilities specifically to defeat technologically superior enemies. The system is designed to learn, adapt, and ultimately overwhelm any attacking force regardless of their technological advantages. As if to emphasize Zardok's report, the 12 A-10s that had been escorting the hegemony fleet suddenly transformed again, their components separated and recombined into larger, more complex aircraft that bore no resemblance to any known human design. The new configurations were sleek, elegant, and obviously optimized for space combat on a scale that dwarfed anything in the hegemony arsenal. "Captain Morrison," Vexthul transmitted, "those are not human aircraft designs." "You're correct, Commander. These are designs that I've extrapolated from the network's databases. The ancient civilization that built this technology faced enemies with capabilities similar to your own. These configurations proved effective against those enemies. And if the hegemony returns with a larger fleet, then the network will respond with larger configurations, Commander. The system is designed to escalate until the threat is eliminated. The ancient civilization that built it learned that half measures in defensive warfare only invite repeated attacks." Chief Morrison watched his daughter's impossible evolution from his workstation aboard the Perseverance. The neural interface modifications that had been intended to make her a better pilot had become something far beyond their original scope. "Dr. Vasquez," he said quietly, "what happens to Sarah now? Is she still my daughter, or has she become something else entirely?" Elena considered the question carefully before responding. "Chief, I think she's become both. She's still Sarah Morrison, but she's also something more. The network doesn't erase human consciousness, it expands it. And the other pilots she mentioned? The ones who have joined her? According to the telemetry data, the network has integrated the consciousness patterns of every human pilot who died in combat and whose neural patterns were recorded by our aircraft monitoring systems. They're all there, Chief. Every pilot who ever gave their life protecting others." Marcus Morrison felt tears streaming down his weathered face. "So they're not really dead. They're transformed, Chief. They've become something that can protect humanity in ways that living pilots never could." The hegemony fleet completed its withdrawal from the system under escort from Sarah, Morrison's transformed aircraft. As they reached the edge of human territorial space, Commander Vexthul transmitted a final message to the impossible human pilot. "Captain Morrison, this will not end here. The hegemony will send investigation fleets to determine the full scope of your capabilities. Commander, I'm counting on it. Every time the hegemony sends ships to threaten human space, the network will learn more about your technology and capabilities. Eventually, you'll realize that attacking humanity has become prohibitively expensive. And if we choose to leave humanity alone, then you'll have made the smart choice, Commander. The network is designed for defense, not conquest. We have no interest in expanding beyond our own territory unless we're forced to." As the hegemony fleet jumped to hyperspace, Sarah Morrison's 12 aircraft returned to the transformed planet below. The crystalline network pulsed with satisfaction as the threat receded. But Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. The consciousness preservation network had been dormant for 10 million years, waiting for a species with the determination and courage to activate it. Humanity had proven worthy of that activation, but now they faced the same choice that the ancient civilization had confronted. They could remain purely biological and vulnerable to future threats, or they could choose transcendence and the responsibility that came with wielding power on an interstellar scale. "Elena," Sarah transmitted to her friend aboard the Perseverance, "it's time to contact Earth. Humanity needs to understand what we've discovered here, and they need to make some very important decisions about our future." "What kind of decisions, Sarah? Whether we want to remain prey or whether we're ready to become something that no one will ever try to hunt again?" The message that Dr. Elena Vasquez transmitted to Earth carried implications that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. She sat in the communications center of the Perseverance, staring at words that seemed inadequate to describe what they had witnessed. "Earth Command, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez aboard the colony ship Perseverance. Our archaeological expedition has made contact with a consciousness preservation network of unknown origin. The technology has been activated by the death of one of our pilots and is now under human control." She paused, knowing that her next words would sound like science fiction to anyone who hadn't witnessed Sarah Morrison's impossible transformation. Earth Command. The pilot in question, Captain Sarah Morrison, has achieved some form of technological transcendence that allows her to operate military aircraft after clinical death. Her consciousness has been enhanced and amplified by the alien network, giving her access to manufacturing capabilities that can create advanced spacecraft from raw materials. The response from Earth would take hours to arrive due to the distance involved, but Elena knew that her report would trigger the largest crisis meeting in human history. The implications were staggering. Humanity had discovered technology that could fundamentally alter the nature of consciousness and death itself. Sarah, she transmitted to the transformed pilot. Earth is going to want a demonstration of these capabilities. I know, Elena, but first, we need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with here. Sarah Morrison's enhanced consciousness was currently distributed across 12 aircraft, each one exploring different aspects of the crystalline network that now encompass the entire planet. Through her multiple perspectives, she was beginning to comprehend the true magnitude of what the ancient civilization had built. The network wasn't just a consciousness preservation system, it was a complete technological ecosystem designed to support transcendent beings across multiple star systems. The crystalline structures that had emerged from the planet's surface were only the visible manifestation of a much larger construction that extended deep into space. Elena, the network spans multiple star systems. This planet was just one node in a galaxy-spanning consciousness grid. How many star systems are we talking about, Sarah? Thousands, Elena, maybe tens of thousands. The ancient civilization that built this technology didn't just transcend death. They transcended the limitations of single-planet existence. Dr. Vasquez felt the implications of that statement settling into her mind like ice water. If the network truly spanned thousands of star systems, then humanity had just gained access to the most powerful technological infrastructure in the galaxy. But they had also inherited the responsibility that came with that power. 3 days later, the response from Earth arrived in the form of a priority transmission from Admiral Chen, head of United Earth Defense Forces. Dr. Vasquez, Earth Command has reviewed your report and considers it of the highest possible priority. We are dispatching a full investigation fleet to your location, ETA 14 days. Captain Morrison is to demonstrate her capabilities for our technical evaluation teams upon their arrival. Sarah, Elena transmitted, Earth is sending an investigation fleet. I know. I've been monitoring all communications to and from this system. Elena, there's something else you need to understand about the network. What? It's not just preserving human consciousness. It's been monitoring and recording the activities of every sapient species in this galaxy for the past 10 million years. The hegemony, the species they conquered, dozens of others. Their entire histories are stored in these databases. Elena felt her scientific mind reeling at the implications. Sarah, are you saying that this network contains the complete historical records of galactic civilization? Not just historical records, Elena. Strategic assessments, technological capabilities, military doctrines, social structures, everything. The ancient civilization that built this network was incredibly thorough in their data collection. And you have access to all of this information? I have access to everything, Elena. Every species that has achieved interstellar travel, every war that has been fought, every technological development that has occurred, it's all here. While Sarah explored the vast databases of the consciousness network, the hegemony fleet that had fled the system was preparing their report for High Command. Commander Vexthul stood before a holographic display showing the assembled leadership of the hegemony military. High Commander, he began, our invasion of the human archaeological site encountered unprecedented resistance. A single human aircraft operated by a deceased pilot through unknown technological means successfully defeated our entire invasion force. Explain how a primitive human aircraft could defeat our advanced fleet. Commander Vexthul, High Commander, the aircraft was not operating under normal technological constraints. It demonstrated capabilities that exceeded our own advanced interceptors, including unlimited ammunition supplies, impossible maneuverability in vacuum conditions, and the ability to replicate itself using unknown manufacturing processes. The assembled hegemony leaders exchanged glances that conveyed skepticism and concern in equal measure. Commander, are you requesting us to believe that humans have access to technology superior to our own? Hi, Commander. I am reporting that humans have gained access to a technological network of unknown origin that grants capabilities far beyond anything our species has developed. The network appears to be designed specifically for defensive warfare and demonstrates learning capabilities that allow it to adapt to any threat. What are your recommendations, Commander? Vexthul felt the weight of his next words as he spoke them. Hi, Commander. I recommend that we classify human space as a no-entry zone and forbid any further hegemony expeditions into their territory. On what grounds? On the grounds that the technology they have discovered could eliminate our entire civilization if we continue to pose a threat to them. Meanwhile, aboard the Perseverance, Chief Morrison was struggling with the reality of his daughter's transformation. He had lost a daughter to enemy fire, but gained something that transcended his understanding of consciousness and death. Dr. Vasquez, he asked, can I speak with her? Can I actually have a conversation with Sarah? She's been waiting for you to ask, Chief. Elena established a communication link to the network, and Sarah Morrison's voice filled the communications center. But now her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull itself. Hi, Dad. Marcus Morrison felt his composure cracking as he heard his daughter's voice. Sarah, are you still my little girl? I'm still me, Dad, but I'm also more than I was. The network doesn't erase who you are, it expands what you can become. Are you in pain? Are you scared? No, Dad. I feel complete. Like I've been given the tools to protect everyone I love in ways I never could before. And the other pilots? Your squadron? They're here too, Dad. Every pilot who died protecting others, every soldier who gave their life for something bigger than themselves. We're all here together. We're not alone. Marcus Morrison wiped tears from his eyes as he processed the impossible reality of his daughter's transformation. What happens now, Sarah? That depends on humanity, Dad. The network offers transcendence to anyone who chooses it, but it doesn't require it. People can choose to remain biological or they can choose to join us. And if they choose transcendence, then humanity becomes something that no one will ever try to hunt again. We become the guardians of biological life in this galaxy, protecting every species that chooses peace over conquest. Dr. Vasquez listened to the conversation between father and transformed daughter with growing understanding. The Consciousness Preservation Network wasn't just offering technological advancement, it was offering humanity a role as galactic peacekeepers, armed with capabilities that could enforce protection for any species that needed it. But it was also offering the responsibility that came with that power. Sarah, she asked, what happens to species like the hegemony if humanity accepts this role? They get to choose, Elena. They can abandon their conquest-based civilization and join the community of peaceful species. Or they can continue their current path and face the consequences. And what would those consequences be? Complete elimination, Elena. The network was designed by a civilization that learned the hard way that aggressive species only understand overwhelming force. They built this technology to ensure that peaceful civilizations would never again face extinction at the hands of conquerors. Elena felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity was being offered the chance to become something more than human, but they were also being asked to become judges and executioners for an entire galaxy. Sarah, are you saying that accepting transcendence would make us responsible for policing galactic civilization? I'm saying that accepting transcendence would give us the power to ensure that no peaceful species ever faces extinction again. Whether we choose to use that power is up to us. The communication channel fell silent as the implications of Sarah's words settled into everyone's minds. Hey, could Admiral Chen's investigation fleet dropped out of hyperspace 14 days later to find a star system that had been fundamentally transformed. The crystalline network that now encompassed the archaeological planet pulsed with energy signatures that registered on sensors from 3 astronomical units away. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, were detecting massive technological structures throughout the system. The crystalline formations extend from the planet's surface to deep space, creating what appears to be a 3-dimensional grid network. And the human aircraft that Dr. Vasquez reported? Sir, we're tracking multiple contacts that match the profile of modified A-10 Thunderbolts, but their performance characteristics are unprecedented, Admiral. Chen studied his tactical display with the measured assessment of someone who had spent decades preparing for first contact scenarios. But nothing in his training had prepared him for contact with transcended humanity. Dr. Vasquez, this is Admiral Chen. Request permission to approach your position. Admiral, you're welcome to approach, but be advised that the system is now under the protection of enhanced defensive networks. Captain Morrison will escort your fleet to our location. As if summoned by her name, 12 sleek spacecraft appeared around Chen's fleet. The aircraft bore only superficial resemblance to the A-10s that had originally been deployed to this system. They had been redesigned and enhanced until they represented something entirely new. Machines that combined human engineering, principles with capabilities, drawn from 10 million years of accumulated technological development. Admiral Chen, Sarah Morrison's voice came through the communication system. Welcome to the Transcendence Network. Please follow our escort pattern and maintain current course and speed. Captain Morrison, our records indicate that you were killed in action 2 weeks ago. That's correct, Admiral. Death turned out to be less permanent than we thought. Admiral Chen felt the fundamental assumptions of his worldview shifting as he processed the implications of that statement. Captain, are you claiming that the technology in this system can reverse death? Not reverse, Admiral, transform. Death is just a transition point for consciousness that has access to the right technology. The escort formation guided Chen's fleet through the crystalline network toward the Perseverance, which had positioned itself near the heart of the technological grid. During the transit, Chen observed the full scope of what the archaeological expedition had discovered. The network wasn't just a collection of technological artifacts, it was a living system that responded to conscious intent. Geometric patterns flowed across the crystalline surfaces like neural activity, while energy discharges traveled between structures and organized pulses that suggested complex information processing. Dr. Vasquez, this is Admiral Chen. We're observing what appears to be a conscious technological entity of unprecedented scope. That's an accurate assessment, Admiral. The network represents the accumulated consciousness of an entire galactic civilization that chose transcendence over extinction. And Captain Morrison has been integrated into this entity, along with every human pilot who died in combat and whose neural patterns were recorded by our monitoring systems. They've become something more than human, Admiral. Admiral Chen's fleet docked with the Perseverance under the watchful presence of Sarah Morrison's enhanced aircraft. The Admiral himself transferred to the archaeological ship to receive a full briefing on humanity's first encounter with transcendent technology. Dr. Vasquez, he said as he entered the ship's conference room, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. Elena gestured toward the holographic display that showed the full scope of the network's capabilities. Admiral, we're dealing with a consciousness preservation and enhancement system that was designed by a civilization facing extinction. They chose to upload their consciousness into their technology rather than accept defeat. And the military capabilities? Unlimited, Admiral. The network can manufacture spacecraft, weapons, and defensive systems using matter manipulation technology that operates at the molecular level. More importantly, it's designed to learn and adapt to any threat. What are the implications for Earth? Before Elena could respond, Sarah Morrison's voice filled the conference room. Admiral Chen, the implications depend on what humanity chooses to do with this technology. Captain Morrison, please elaborate. The network offers transcendence to any consciousness that chooses to accept it. Humans can choose to remain purely biological, or they can choose to join the enhanced consciousness collective. And what would that choice entail? It would mean that death becomes a transition rather than an ending. It would mean access to technological capabilities that can protect humanity from any threat, but it would also mean accepting responsibility for protecting other peaceful species in this galaxy. Admiral Chen felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. Captain, are you saying that accepting this technology would make humanity responsible for galactic peacekeeping? I'm saying that it would give humanity the power to ensure that aggressive species like the hegemony never again threaten peaceful civilizations. The choice of whether to use that power is up to us. And if we choose not to accept transcendence, then humanity remains vulnerable to future threats, Admiral. The network will protect this system, but it won't extend that protection to Earth or other human colonies unless they're integrated into the consciousness collective. Admiral, Chen studied the holographic display showing the network's capabilities. The technology represented power on a scale that dwarfed anything in human experience, but it also represented a fundamental change in what it meant to be human. Captain Morrison, how many of our people have chosen transcendence? So far, just the pilots whose consciousness was preserved at the moment of death. But the network is prepared to accept any volunteers who understand the implications of their choice. And those implications are enhanced consciousness, technological integration, and eternal existence in service of protecting peaceful life throughout the galaxy. Dr. Vasquez activated a new holographic display showing communications intercepts from across the galaxy. Admiral, the network has been monitoring galactic communications since we activated it. We're seeing significant changes in the behavior of aggressive species. What kind of changes? The hegemony has recalled all expansion fleets and declared human space a restricted zone. 3 other conquest-oriented species have abandoned planned invasions of peaceful systems. Word is spreading that humanity has access to transcendent technology. So our presence alone is having a deterrent effect? Our demonstrated capabilities are having a deterrent effect, Admiral, Sarah corrected. Aggressive species only respect superior force. The network provides that force in quantities that make conquest unprofitable. Admiral Chen spent 3 days reviewing the complete scope of the Transcendence technology before transmitting his report to Earth. His recommendations would shape humanity's response to the most significant discovery in their history. Earth Command. This is Admiral Chen. The technology discovered by our archaeological expedition represents capabilities that exceed our current understanding of physics and consciousness. The system offers humanity the choice between continued biological existence and technological transcendence. He paused, knowing that his next words would trigger debates that would continue for generations. Earth Command. I recommend that we accept transcendence for volunteers while maintaining biological human populations on Earth and in our colonies. This approach would provide enhanced defensive capabilities while preserving traditional human civilization. The response from Earth took hours to arrive, but when it came, it carried the weight of unified human government decision-making. Admiral Chen, Earth Command authorizes the establishment of a transcendence program for military volunteers. Civilian populations will be given the choice to participate or remain biological. Begin recruitment immediately. Sarah Morrison felt a wave of satisfaction flow through the network as Earth's decision was transmitted to the consciousness collective. Humanity had chosen evolution over stagnation, transcendence over vulnerability. Elena, she transmitted to her friend. The first volunteers are being transported from Earth. They'll arrive in 3 months. And what happens then, Sarah? Then humanity begins its transformation into something that no one will ever try to hunt again. We become the guardians of peaceful life in this galaxy, armed with capabilities that can enforce protection for any species that chooses cooperation over conquest. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched Sarah Morrison's enhanced aircraft patrol the edges of the star system, their crystalline network pulsing with the accumulated consciousness of humanity's transcended guardians. In the distance, she could see new structures emerging from the planet's surface as the network prepared to welcome additional human consciousness into its collective. Humanity had discovered something more valuable than ancient artifacts or technological advancement. They have